had, and if the committee has any questions, happy to address those.
Just congratulations all around. We have, this is my 12th year in the legislature, Director Williams. We have had private conversations, and I have sat as a chair of the policy committee and this committee, and nary a day that we have a triumphant atmosphere like we have today with the Department of Toxic Substance. So congratulations to you and your staff. Good work all around. All right, we have a question by Senator Stern.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As somebody who represents the communities impacted by the toxic waste site, I'm going to withhold any congratulations at this point. I hope you'll appreciate my skepticism, given the tremendous public health impacts that we've been enduring for far too long, and also forgive my skepticism on anything that the Boeing company is willing to agree to, given their historic intransigence on cleaning up what their responsibility is and putting their dollars on the line. So I just have a few questions. I know we'll be getting deeper into this at the community forum on June 2nd. But the fact that whatever negotiation led up to this agreement was not done in public requires the utmost scrutiny at this point. So I'm not prepared to issue congratulations or even any sort of tacit endorsement of this agreement until we've drilled down on some of these key questions. So let me just go in order here. Maybe Dr. Williams or the deputy wants to take a shot at it. But what standard is DTSC and the EPA using to claim that this is the strictest possible cleanup standard?
Thank you, and thank you first and foremost for digging in. It is incredibly important that everybody have faith in this agreement and in what we're going to require Boeing to do. The people who've been impacted by the site and live in the shadow of it deserve nothing less. So you ask about the cleanup standard, and I do need to be clear that we have not established a cleanup standard because we are not running the CEQA. So we anticipate applying the most rigorous standard possible at the site, but that cleanup standard won't be final until we certify the program environmental impact report later this year. But it is our goal to require Boeing to clean up to what we call a resident with garden cleanup standard. And when we talk about it as the strictest standard, we're referencing the 2007 consent order. And although that order didn't specify a standard, it outlined a range of possible exposure scenarios: a recreator standard, a residential standard, or a residential scenario, two different residential scenarios where people would have gardens in their backyards. And of those scenarios, a resident with 100% garden scenario does produce the most stringent cleanup, and that's what the agreement calls for. Normally, we set our risk-based standards based on land use, and we would typically apply a residential cleanup standard to the site, but of course we want to ensure even more protections in anticipation of potential future land use and in light of the extensive contamination at the site. So just by point of reference, a resident with garden cleanup standard has only been used in just a handful of sites around the state.
And I was very heartened to see that standard, and that's what we in the community have been asking for a very long time. Just what the methodology is to arrive at that residential garden standard, I think, is everything. The devil is in those details. Can you comment on the concern around this standardized risk assessment methodology? You briefly mentioned in your opening remarks, but has the acronym is the SRAM, but has the SRAM been altered to fit this cleanup agreement?
So, as you all know, it is a complex cleanup. And so the SRAM, the Standardized Risk Assessment Methodology, was developed to provide very specific detail to Boeing about how to perform and apply a risk-based cleanup at SSFL. And so we needed to document this methodology because, as I highlighted, a resident garden standard is not widely used. And so the methods outlined in the SRAM have remained the same. But DTSC always makes sure that we're using authoritative values and guidance. And in this case, we are using values and guidance that is curated and updated on a regular basis. So the SRAM needs to be updated to reflect those changes.
So what you're saying is you did not update the SRAM to accommodate an end goal for the agreement, but that it's not consistent with current EPA guidance? Is that
No, quite the opposite,
okay.
Actually. We didn't modify the SRAM to reflect, to try to get to an answer. We didn't predetermine an answer and then back into it, but not by any means. But yes, this is fully consistent with US EPA guidance. And in fact, they use a very similar process when they use their risk calculators, in that they point to authoritative databases and data sources and use whatever data are published in those databases and data sources at a given time. And so that's what we're doing is we're reflecting the updates to both any guidance and any source data that go into the SRAM. And the SRAM calculations are very complex, and I have to just say, I'm a PhD physicist. I don't use my scientific chops every day in my work, but this is an exception. In this case, I dug very deep into the calculations until I was confident of the work of our toxicologists, and I was confident in the methods. And we would be more than happy to walk you through the calculations, and we're committed to transparency, and we want everyone who tracks this cleanup to be confident that we are ensuring a highly protected cleanup. So we'll continue to make the supporting information that leads to about the SRAM available.
Can I just to follow up on that, just to make what you're saying is very complex as simple as possible for myself and for all the constituents listening. I understand this gets down to how much toxicity can be uptaked into, say, a tomato plant or whatever you may be growing in that garden, such that if you consume that food, that fruit, whatever it was, that you would, throughout the course of your life, I think, that you'd have no foreseeable risk of carcinogenic effects. So is the disagreement or the skepticism from community advocates about how much that plant will uptake that sort of toxic material on site, how much would actually end up in whatever that tomato is or that piece of fruit?
Yeah, so you're right there. So it's a combination of the amount of contamination that plant would take up, as well as the amount of contamination that's left on the plant simply by, having soil. Even if you wash your produce, you know what it's like taking gritty spinach or vegetables that still have some residual soil. So those are the two things that go into the calculation. That's the two of the things that go into the calculation. So yes, when we go and we look at the governing documents that say this is how much lettuce, and we talk about lettuce because lettuce does tend to take up more soil, take up more contamination, and just surface area wise, take up a lot of soil might adhere to it. So it's a very conservative way to go, a very health protective way to do the calculation. So we base everything on lettuce. And in the case of lettuce, one of the variables, one of the data sources did change. over the years, and so that's precisely where the concern is.
Appreciate that. Listen, we'll have further questions for you, and I appreciate the offer of a briefing to dig deeper. I would say, just to build the most public trust possible, I'd like to have whatever those briefings are done in a public format, because the community has many questions. So I will defer that to the June 2nd event and take whatever backup technical information you all have in this over 800-page agreement that we'll be reviewing with our team in great detail. I did want to note, however, for the purposes of the item today, and maybe the chair could clarify, while I'm withholding my judgment about this agreement, and again, heartened about residential garden, but we want that to be real and dependable, and that lettuce to be safe if it truly is grown there. That what the budget item today is not actually the MOU itself or any tacit approval of this agreement, but it's really about enforcement, having enough staff to look after the hazardous waste control issues, and that the cost of the positions, as I see here, will be funded through cost recovery from the responsible parties. So can you or maybe the department just comment on that, just to make clear that these positions we're funding today are sort of no regrets enforcement positions that aren't necessarily a tacit approval or some endorsement of the agreement, but instead are positions that we'd be funding up front, and then the cost would be then recovered from Department of Energy, NASA, as well as Boeing. Do I have that right?
Luckily, Senator Stern, we have Brian Brown, who is the Chief Financial Director for the Department of Toxic Substance. Can you confirm that issue number 16 before us is simply for the 14 permanent positions to the tune of $2.1 million from the Hazardous Waste Control account and $1 million from the Federal Trust account for permanent positions, which will be reimbursed by the, at least in this case, the three parties that are involved in Santa Susana.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Senator Stern. That is correct. The funding that is being requested is to support the cleanup of the entire site, to oversee the work that the three responsible parties will engage in to clean up the site. And yes, the funding that we're requesting for the positions will be fully reimbursed by the responsible parties through contract or federal funding.
So upfront funding for cleanup oversight that then won't be at taxpayer expense based on the reimbursement from the responsible parties.
That's right. We issue invoices for those contracts, so that we do technically get paid in arrears, but it is fully reimbursed and will not affect the fees. For example, the fees that were increased through our fee reform legislation last year.
Okay, understood. All right, I'm comfortable at this point with the issue, the item before us, Mr. Chair, but appreciate Dr. Williams and the rest of the team, your openness to digging in deeper here, and look forward to kicking the tires on what has been an ongoing moral debt that we still have not fully repaid to this community. So in honor of getting that done, I'll be supporting here today.
I appreciate everyone also. I know this wasn't the specifics of the agenda item, but I thought given the proximity to the hearing and the continuation from last week, that it was well worth it. All right, thank you for your time. We're going to move to the public hearing process now. Thank you very much.